The Cardinals are headed back to Omaha.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this off-season Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube, 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. For the first time since 2019, the Louisville Baseball program is headed back to Omaha, clinching a World Series berth after defeating Miami in the Super Regionals this past weekend. We'll discuss the electric crowd, Eddie King Jr., Jake Munroe, the awesome pitching, and much more in the first segment. We'll also talk about the men's basketball program supposedly and reportedly being interested in bringing in another guard to be potentially the final piece for the 2025-26 roster. How likely is it that Derrick Butler from Bowling Green could be the final addition to the roster? What would the fit and role look like there? And much, much more. But Card Nation, the vibes are high because the drought is over. The 6-year drought is over. The Louisville baseball program is headed back to Omaha. They will play in the World Series beginning at the end of this week after defeating Miami in the best-of-3 Super Regional Series at Jim Patterson Stadium this past weekend. The Cardinals defeated the Canes in the decisive winner-take-all Game 3 yesterday on Sunday, 3-2. It was nerve-wracking, as baseball tends to be, but an awesome atmosphere. If you were able to make it out to Jim Patterson Stadium this past weekend, bravo, hats off to you. It was a sold-out, electric atmosphere. I was there for all 3 games, and all 27 innings, I did not sit once. Like, it was standing room only out in the berm. It was sold out. And even with the weather, I mean, there was the first pitch getting delayed Game 1, the delay at the end of Game 1. There was some light rain on Sunday. It was overcast on Saturday. Like, even with the weather potentially in the equation, Card Nation showed up and they showed out. It was as packed as I've ever seen Jimmy P. And I've been to a good amount of baseball games. And it was an up-and-down series that started with Louisville throwing that first punch. Yeah, Patrick Forbes kind of struggled with command early on, allowing some early game on-base traffic. But he settled in, ended up throwing 5 2/3 innings of 4-hit, 1-run baseball. Louisville led by Jake Munroe early on. It was the Eddie King Jr. and Jake Munroe show this weekend, especially Jake early on. He had 2 home runs in the first game. Garrett Pike led things off with that home run, and the Cardinals winning 8-1 Game 1, which was awesome to see. And then you go to Game 2, and with Tucker Biven on the mound, the Cardinals having a 4-1 lead, we thought that, hey, maybe the Cardinals sweep the Canes, and it doesn't have to go to Game 3. Well, with Kamayu Neighbors getting thrown out at second base with bases loaded, 2 outs, the momentum just completely changed. Alex Alicea had the error to lead off that, the bottom of the 4th inning. There was that controversial fair foul ball call. But even after that, there was a single followed up immediately by a 3-run home run that Miami was able to take the lead on. Louisville ended up tying the game back up with a solo shot from Eddie King Jr., who, again, that was his second home run of the game. He was electric in this one, but Miami then scored the next 4 runs. Louisville threatened in the top of the 9th, but was only able to get 1 back, and they lost 9-6. And like I said, Jake Munroe, Eddie King were really good hitting the ball this weekend. Eddie King was fantastic. 6 of 10, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and 2 doubles. In the regionals, he was 6 of 12 with a home run, 4 RBIs, 2 doubles, and a walk. And he solidified himself as a Louisville legend on Sunday. But I don't really think that Tucker Biven had a bad game. I thought he threw well. There were some situations where, he gave up 7 hits, 1 earned run, and 2 walks. But I still felt like, even with the command rough here and there, he held his own. On Sunday, the decisive Game 3, Ethan Eberle gets the start. True freshman was a star against Wright State in that regional clinching victory last Sunday. And Miami actually struck first. They struck first in this game with a home run. They went up 2-0. Louisville kind of came out and was just hitting right to Miami players in the field. Good exit velo, but just right to players. That's how baseball works. In that 4th inning, though, Zion Rose with a double. Byram Hott reached on that fielder's choice to tie the game. And then in the 7th inning, Eddie King Jr. doubled to center field. Center fielder wasn't able to make a play, and Jake Munroe ended up scoring to give Louisville the go-ahead lead. Now, actually, the inning prior, Jake Schweitzer, with the bases loaded, ended up getting a ground ball to him. He flipped it back to Matt Klein, who threw a bullet over to Tate Davis, who made an acrobatic play at first base to get a double play and get out of that unscathed. But Louisville, with the bullpen relief of Jake Schweitzer, Justin West, and Brennan Cutts, they were able to throw up a 0 in relief. Eberle, 5 innings of 2-run baseball. And the pitching staff through 2 weekends, 2 ERA. Eddie King, with how good he was, went from being a Cardinals star to an absolute Louisville legend, being able to do this after deciding to come back for his final year of eligibility and just putting on a show. It was absolutely incredible. And the Cardinals are back in Omaha for the first time since 2019. And I don't know about you all, but if you're like me in this aspect, when I think about 2019, I turned 21 that year. I graduated college that year. When I think about 2019 at times, I'm like, man, it doesn't seem like that long ago. But in the same breath, it's like, damn, that was 6 years ago. Like, the coronavirus pandemic hadn't surfaced yet. Like, 2019 feels like it wasn't that long ago, but it was at the same time. Now, Dan McDonnell is on the Louisville head coach Mount Rushmore, regardless of sport. He has been the pioneer for this Louisville baseball program, taking the program to new heights, basically almost starting the program, honestly. But 5 World Series leading up to this point, 9 Super Regionals, most of his seasons being playoff seasons. He's been great. And the fan base loves him. But in this society where it's not, what have you done for me in the past? It's, what have you done for me now? What have you done for me recently? And with the Cardinals not only not having been to Omaha since 2019, but they'd only made the tournament once, and that was in 2022. Yeah, 2020, with the team that we had, we would have made some noise, but that season was canceled early. 2021, 23, 24, you don't make the tournament. In 24, it seemed like the Cardinals got disrespected by the committee and didn't end up making the tournament, and it seemed like there was a chip on their shoulder. Dan McDonnell and company even mentioned that. And the criticism continued to grow louder and louder, asking whether or not the game had passed Coach Mack up, whether Roger Williams was still the guy to be the pitching coach. And I felt like these past couple of weeks was Coach Mack and Roger basically saying, hey, look, guys, this is what this program is. Getting back to Omaha, we've still got it. The future of this program is still in good hands. I know that there has been some justifiable criticism, and there's also been some unfair critique as well. But look at where we can still get to. I understand we've been in the valley, but we're now on the other side and getting out and getting back to those heights that we had been used to getting to. So we will preview these World Series matchup coming up against Oregon State as we get closer and closer to that game on Friday. Game time to be determined. And, we will discuss more baseball as the week goes along. But some men's basketball talk coming up where apparently the Cardinals are interested in another guard. We'll tell you who it is and what the fit looks like when we come back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are here. The series is tied 1-1 between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game, whether it's tip-off or live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. However, it's not just basketball. This weekend, the U.S. opened in golf, and FanDuel has Scottie Scheffler at plus 280 in current odds to win one of the golf majors. And look, I'm a big Scottie fan, and I'm going to take that because I think Scottie rises to the occasion in the large events. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up and head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And don't forget, Scottie Scheffler for the W. Card Nation, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. We haven't had much basketball news recently in regards to the roster for next year. We've had some news about 2026 high school recruiting, but in relation to this upcoming roster, we're still waiting the Ali Khalifa appeal decision. And we're waiting to see if Louisville's going to add another player, which I believed that they were going to. And I'll admit, I didn't expect the Cardinals to be linked to a guard. Now, full transparency here, you have to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to Twitter accounts putting a certain team in a list, because sometimes this list could be something coming from the agent. It could be something used for leverage and negotiations. But even with everything considered, Hitman Hoops, at Hitman Hoops on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, says this, and this was late last week. Bowling Green transfer 6'2" guard Derrick Butler is one of the best guards still available in the portal and has recently heard from the following per his reps: Tennessee, Seton Hall, Louisville, Ole Miss, and more. End quote. I find this very interesting because I felt like if the Cardinals were going to add a player to the roster, that might be a wing or a big man. But I also understand that there's a log jam everywhere you look up and down this rotation. The Cardinals are still optimistic that Ali Khalifa is going to get ruled eligible for that final season next year. And if he is, I mean, how are you going to give all of these players minutes? That's why I was saying that if you're using that final spot, it's for a redshirt candidate, it's for an international player that you can help develop into a key contributor, or it's a reclassification. But this is an interesting situation because Derrick Butler is a senior. 6'2", 195 pounds from Charlotte, North Carolina. Played last season at Bowling Green State, played the year before that at Central Michigan. Now, I'm not sure if he'll have 1 or 2 years of eligibility. It would make much more sense if he had 2 years. But again, if you listen to this show regularly, you understand that I am an avid subscriber in the stockpile talent mentality. Like, bring in as much talent as you can now and make things work in the rotation later. Of course, that's what high major D1 coaches are getting paid the money to do, of course, to win games. But an aspect of that is making things work with the roster, with the rotation, and everything that the Cardinals do is very calculated. It's precise. It is meticulous. And I have to imagine that if this is true, now we are operating under the heavy assumption, or not the heavy assumption, we are like operating under the assumption that this is true and that there is legit interest. Like, even like when you read that tweet where it says he's heard from the following, like Louisville could just be reaching out and that's the full extent of it. It could be a phone call. Hey, what's the NIL number that you're looking at? What are you looking at in terms of role? Okay, boop, hang up, thanks for your time. Or it could be a situation where Louisville is like, yeah, I mean, we really like the skill set on this guy. We think that he could be a player that could help solidify our rotation and really make us title contenders. And it's going to be hard to know until we see something, if we see anything. I mean, this could be the full extent of it. So you have to understand that even when we're talking about this situation, and the reason that we're talking about this is because it's June 9th, and there's not much news out there. Like, you haven't heard many names recently. So the fact that Louisville is reaching out to players, and one of them is a guard, pretty intriguing. Derrick Butler, this past season for Bowling Green State, for a Falcons team that went 14-18, they weren't a good team. He started 20 of the 31 games, averaging 31.3 minutes. He averaged a career high 13.2 points per game on 41% shooting from the field, 35% from three, and 70% from the free throw line. Just right off the bat, those numbers, I'd say a little lackluster, especially for someone who's 6'2" and shoots 53% around the rim. That means that he's a big-time shot maker, but sometimes the efficiency takes a backseat to that. 41% from the field on 11 attempts. I think it could be a little better, but when you realize that 5.7 of those attempts are three-pointers, where he makes 34.5% of them, which is not a bad number. It's good volume. It's not like Isaac McNeely numbers, but I think that it fits the MO of what Louisville's looking for, and that is shooting the basketball. He's an off-ball player from what I've seen. There's not much film out there from the highlights that I've seen, from the minimal film that I've been able to get my hands on. It seems like he operates most off-ball. Like, he was considered by some publications as a wing, which I don't know how at 6'2". It really just kind of depends on what you consider a wing to be as a position. But I think that he is like a Kobe Rogers type guard in that he can play on or off ball. Defensively, there are a couple of highlights where he shows active hands and good lateral quickness to be able to stay in front of his defensive assignment. But again, small sample size from what I've seen. Every highlight is usually good things happening. So also averaged 3.5 rebounds per game and 1 assist per contest. So at Bowling Green, he was a scoring option, and that's what he was relied upon to be. He was the third leading scorer behind Marcus Johnson and Javonte Campbell. He played the second most minutes on the team, literally 0.1 minutes less than Marcus Johnson, who led the team. But you have to wonder a couple things. Number one, with him coming from the mid-major level, and it's a mid-major team that wasn't good, two questions come up. Number one, how much did he contribute to Bowling Green not being good? Very valid question, because up to this point, the Cardinals usually take players that come from winning teams, tournament teams last year. Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards Jr., Javon Hadley, Abubakar Traore, Noah Waterman. The list goes on. But with Butler, how much did he contribute to the team being bad? Was the team bad because of him to an extent, or was it bad despite him? That's a very valid question. The second thing that I wonder is, what does the transition look like to Power 5? I mean, not really a guy that gets many looks to his team. Not really a huge facilitator, like he's a scoring option. How much does the efficiency improve, if at all? Because you're going up against better players, stronger players, more athletic players, faster players. Very valid question, I feel like. Both of them are valid questions. I like the skill set. I think that Derrick Butler could help this team. I'm not saying like he's not Louisville level. I think that honestly, I'm more encouraged about the Cardinals reaching out to him when I understand what that role could look like. So we'll discuss what that role could look like when we come back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation continuing along through the off-season month of June. The next episode, we will have another weekly mailbag, so be sure to get your mailbag questions in to the comments below. Any segment recommendations, please, of course, ask those as well in the YouTube comments, or you can reach out on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But ending the conversation today about Derrick Butler, I think it's key that you have to talk about, well, if Louisville really is interested, what would that role look like? What would the fit look like? I think the fit, for starters, I kind of worry about the assist numbers. I don't want him to be a guy that, yes, he was supposed to be a scorer at his last stop, but if he comes to Louisville, I mean, you have scorers. You need guys that, I mean, I guess could give you another option, but also you need able and willing passers. And there are some highlights to where Butler makes some nice reads and some nice passes, but I need to know that, of course, he would be bought into that mentality. I think that his ability to finish around the rim, 52.3% around the rim, is definitely encouraging. But, you need some shooters or more shooters. I mean, put it this way, you don't need more shooters. You have shooters. You can't have too many shooters, and bringing in another shooter would be pretty solid. I think that Butler at 34.5%, he shot 41% the year before that at Central Michigan on 4 attempts. I still think that the upside is there for him. So at this point in a college player's career, what you see really is kind of what you get. Like the amount of upside there, I kind of wonder about, but the fit, I think he fits. He's a solid shooter. He can stretch the floor. He can take the ball to the rim. He can finish through contact in the paint. And coming off of the bench, which is what the role would look like, that's where, I mean, he would be best suited because you have your starters. It's going to be a combination of Adrian Woolley, Michael Brown Jr., Ryan Conwell, and Isaac McNeely. I think Woolley's probably going to be your sixth man. You also have Kobe Rogers coming off of the bench. Now, what kind of concerns me here is, where are the minutes for Derrick Butler? This is a guy that has averaged over 28 minutes the past 2 college basketball seasons. That number would drastically drop. It would drastically drop because you've got your 4 key guards that we just talked about. Of course, Louisville is playing the 3-guard lineup, so there are more opportunities. But, I mean, you're not always going to play the 3-guard lineup. I mean, Kenai Roots will slide into that spot here and there. Javon Hadley, maybe even Muhammad Kamara. You have players, right? You're not always going to play 3-guard lineups. You'll have your traditional 2-guard backcourt at times, depending on the personnel that you're playing against, but you have 5 guard options. Kobe Rogers being the last one, coming off of that knee injury that sidelined him all last season. But he understands Pat Kelsey's system and the terminology in the system, and he's been, around this program. So at this moment, I kind of, if you made me answer who I believed would get more minutes between Kobe Rogers and Derrick Butler, I would probably tell you Rogers, because I think he's a better facilitator and I think he's a better on-ball defender. So is this something where the Cardinals are like, yeah, we're going to take Derrick Butler, or we're reaching out to Derrick Butler to see if, with the NIL budget that we have left, we have a spot that we can fill and we want to make sure that we have as much depth as we can? Or is this like, hey, we actually really do believe in his skill set. We think he could be a solid contributor here next year. And if he has multiple years of eligibility, he could step into that role. And it's hard to see. And this is where I have to defer to the coaching staff because there is a logjam. Like, the team is better overall this year than it was last year, right? And there's only so many minutes to go around. You're not going to play every single player. I know that Pat Kelsey's system substitutes an awful lot, but that does not mean that you're going to play as many players as are on the roster. So I want to use this for a reference before we get out of here. His last season coaching the College of Charleston, right? We're looking at the last season with the College of Charleston and seeing the minutes distribution. It's not always going to look like this because you have stars that are going to get more minutes, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players. Actually, 10. We'll say 10 players that played over 30 games, right? 10 players that played over 30 games, and 2 of them averaged under 12 minutes a game. So you had 8 players that averaged at least 12 minutes per game. It's not always going to look like that, but you've got those 5 guards, right? You got 4 for sure. Let's put Kobe Rogers to the side for the moment. You got those 4 guards. You've got Javon Hadley and Kenai Roots. That's 6. You've got Pryor. That's 7. You've got Sananda Frew is 8. And you have, I'm going to throw Ali Khalifa in here because it's the front court. That's 9. Vangelis Zouguris is 10. And then you have, competing with Kobe Rogers, you have potentially Muhammad Kamara. I mean, who is on the outside looking in? And if you're telling me that Louisville is recruiting like a senior guard and convincing this player that has played over 28 minutes a game his past 2 seasons to take a role that, hey, look, man, you're going to be like a end of the 10-man rotation. It's hard for me to see that and visualize it. So how likely is it that Louisville brings Butler in? If you ask me at this point, I'm going to say unlikely because the fit is there, but the role might not be there. Like if Louisville didn't have Kobe Rogers, then I would say, yeah, of course, bring Derrick Butler in. But you've got that key reserve guard that can, alleviate foul troubles, or if you're dealing with injuries or a player's just not playing well. Kobe Rogers knows the system. He knows what Pat Kelsey wants out of his game. And I don't know, it feels like this may be one of those Twitter lists that's just throwing Louisville in there because the Cardinals have vocalized that they have a good NIL war chest. And maybe this is one of those where you throw Louisville in the mix. It's a top team, and it's maybe being used as a bargaining chip. It's being used in negotiation tactics for leverage. I don't know. And I don't think that we will know unless the Cardinals bring him in on a visit or if he ends up committing. But I would say at this point, to err on the side of caution, acknowledge that it could be true, but I wouldn't spend a ton of time stressing over it until we hear more. So that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. We'll be back here coming up probably on Wednesday. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow or maybe Wednesday. I don't know. It just depends, guys. Depends on when we get some news. It's off season month. Oh, well, go Cards.